Hi kids, today's story was chosen by an incredibly sweet, very kind little girl called Betsy, and we've gone back to a Disney classic which is her favourite, and it's Alice in Wonderland. One beautiful day, a girl named Alice took a walk outside with her older sister. When they reached a riverbank, Alice climbed to a high tree branch and settled into a comfortable spot. Her sister sat on the ground and started reading aloud from a history book. It was warm outside and Alice didn't feel like paying attention. Instead, she played with her cat Dina. Soon she began to daydream. Alice imagined a world where animals and flowers could talk. There, everything would be nonsense, and it would be wonderful. Just then, Alice looked up and spotted a rabbit who was carrying a pocket watch. "I'm late!" the white rabbit called as he ran by. Alice was curious. She climbed down from the tree and tried to catch up. "Mr. Rabbit, please wait," Alice called. Alice followed the rabbit into a hole in the ground. Suddenly, she began to fall down a long tunnel. She landed in time to see the white rabbit race through a tiny door. Alice tried to go after him, but she was too big. She shut the door. "Try the bottle," someone suggested. Alice looked round startled. It was the doorknob. Suddenly, a bottle appeared on a nearby table. The label on it read, "Drink me." So Alice tried a little. All at once, Alice shrank and shrank. Soon she was so small that she could stand on a table leg. She tried opening the door, but it was locked. The key was on the tabletop far above her. Then the doorknob told Alice to try a cookie that was labelled "Eat Me." As Alice ate it, she grew larger. She became her normal height and then kept on getting bigger. By the time she stopped growing, Alice was enormous. Alice was frustrated. She cried and her giant tears started a flood. For the second time, the doorknob suggested that Alice drink from the bottle. When she did, she became so tiny that she fit inside it. Then the bottle with Alice floated through the keyhole. On the other side, Alice reached a shoreline and met twins named Tweedledee and Tweedledum. She listened to them recite poetry for a moment, and then she said goodbye. "You're beginning backwards," said Tweedledee. "Aye," said Tweedledum. "The first thing in a visit is to say, 'How do you do?' and shake hands." They took Alice's hands and danced around. Alice explained that she was following the white rabbit, but the twins didn't care. They began to tell her a story. Alice wanted to be polite, so she listened. After the twins finished their tale, they still didn't give her a chance to speak. They just wanted to keep on talking to each other, so Alice left. At last, Alice spotted the white rabbit in the yard of his cottage. He was worried because he couldn't find his white gloves. "I'm late!" he exclaimed to Alice. She offered to help, and the two went to search inside the house. While outside, Alice took a bite of some food labelled "Eat Me." She immediately grew into a giant, and her long arms and legs crashed through the cottage windows and doors. The white rabbit panicked. He couldn't believe what a mess Alice had made and ran to get some help. Meanwhile, Alice searched for something that would make her shrink again. She plucked a carrot out of the white rabbit's garden. As soon as she ate some of it, she shrank to a tiny size. As far as the white rabbit could tell, Alice had disappeared. So he gathered his things and left in a hurry. Alice tried to follow him, but she couldn't keep up. After a while, Alice found herself in an unusual garden. She was delighted by all of the strange things that surrounded her. Odd bugs, including bread and butterflies, and a rocking horsefly. flew through the air. Most of the flowers were taller than her, and they could speak. "What kind of flower are you?" a daisy asked. "I'm not a flower," Alice replied. I'm a... But before she could explain, the flowers decided that Alice was a weed. They told her to leave their garden. Next, Alice came to a caterpillar sitting on a mushroom. "Who are you?" he asked. I hardly know, sir," Alice answered. The caterpillar told Alice that eating some of the mushroom would help her. "One side will make you grow taller, and the other side will make you grow shorter," he said. "Which is which?" Alice wondered aloud. She broke off a piece from each side. Alice took a bite of one side and shot up taller than the trees. She even scared a bird that was nesting on a high branch. Alice began to understand how she could use the mushroom to control her height. She took small bites of the other size. Each time she shrunk a bit more until she reached her regular size. Finally, she was back to normal. Alice wandered back through the forest in search of the White Rabbit. Then she saw a cat appear in a tree. He introduced himself as the Cheshire Cat. "Which way should I go?" Alice asked. "That depends on where you want to go," the Cheshire Cat said. "However, if I were looking for a white rabbit, I'd ask the Mad Hatter." "But I don't want to meet mad people," asked Alice. Alice said, "Oh, you can't help that. Most everyone's mad here," the Cheshire Cat replied, and he disappeared. Alice still didn't like the idea, but she did want to find the rabbit, so she walked along the path to the Mad Hatter's house. Alice came to a strange tea party. The Mad Hatter and March Hare were celebrating their unbirthdays. They invited Alice to tea. When they discovered that it was Alice's unbirthday too, the Mad Hatter and March Hare gave her a cake. As Alice blew out the candles, the cake shot into the sky like a rocket. A dormouse holding a tiny umbrella floated down and landed in a teapot. Alice had never seen such nonsense. Alice was just about to leave the party. Then, to her surprise, the White Rabbit ran by. He looked at his watch and cried, "I'm late!" After that, he ran off. Alice followed the White Rabbit, but she lost sight of him. Just as she started to lose hope, the Cheshire Cat reappeared. He showed Alice a shortcut, and she entered a fancy garden. There she watched some playing cards paint white roses red. Suddenly, the White Rabbit ran into the garden. He was there to announce the Queen of Hearts. When the Queen saw that some of the roses were still white, she was furious. "Off with their heads!" she shouted, pointing at the poor playing cards. Then the Queen of Hearts challenged Alice to an odd game of croquet, using roly-poly hedgehogs as the balls and flamingos for the mallets. The Queen began to win, but only because she cheated. The Cheshire Cat suddenly reappeared. Alice spoke to the cat, but he hid himself from the Queen of Hearts. The Queen thought Alice was teasing her and cried, "Off with their heads!" Alice started to run, but the Queen and her guards chased after her. Alice ran until she reached the talking doorknob once more. "I simply must get out," she pleaded. "But you are outside," the doorknob said. "See for yourself." Alice peered through the keyhole and saw herself sitting in the tree with her cat, Dina. She realised that she was in a dream, and she wished that she could wake up. Sure enough, when Alice awoke, she was back in the tree. It was a lovely afternoon, and there wasn't a bit of nonsense. That was just fine with Alice. What an absolutely bonkers story, but so brilliant. Thank you so much. And remember, kids, to keep those requests coming. I love to hear your favourite stories. See you soon. Bye.